Hi everyone, Heather here with Astrology with Heather.com, and I am back with another special video. And today I'm doing something a little bit different. I wanted to pop in and kind of do something to help you guys understand and navigate the energy as it's presenting itself right now in this moment and into the future. We're in some really crazy, really unprecedented times right now, and a lot of people I know are looking for insight and guidance and just a deeper sense of understanding. You know, there's a lot of moving parts right now. There are a lot of things that are up in the air, and so I want to kind of give you guys my perspective on that astrologically so you can understand what's going on, especially right now and into the next few weeks. But I'm going to talk a little bit more broadly about the more long-standing implications of what we're seeing as well. And the main thing I really want to focus on, you guys, is what can we do with this energy right now in this moment, and especially over the next few weeks, as we're going to be, you know, most of us will be sequestered on lockdown, not necessarily able to move about the world in the same way that we're used to. And it's actually kind of interesting because right now we just entered into a period where all of the planets are going direct. And so much is being pushed forward. So much change is happening all at once on a global scale, while at the same time, on an individual level, it feels like a lot of our lives are kind of coming to a grinding halt. Time is moving more slowly. Everybody's just waiting and watching to see what happens next. And I just find that absolutely fascinating because so much is happening with all of these planets moving direct, but at the same time, in our own personal lives, it's kind of like everything is stopping and we're just kind of waiting to see, you know, what's coming next, what's going to happen, what are they going to announce? And it's just a very interesting energy. And so before we get into this video, I just want to explain a little bit about where I'm coming from so you guys can kind of understand that. I don't know everything there is to know about the coronavirus. I don't know everything there is to know about what's going on a global scale. I am not a mundane astrologer. I do dabble for my own purposes, and I saw a lot of these different components coming at the start of this year. I absolutely did not see them coming with this level of intensity, everything rolling out all at once so quickly. And of course, the way that it came about, I think, was shocking to a lot of people, even the ones who were in the know and who understood that we were entering into a different kind of time period. And so I do dabble, again, for my own purposes, for my own personal understanding of what's going on in our reality. And of course, when I team up with Robert Phoenix to do our mundane astrology forecasts every now and again, I do dive into the mundane astrology. But I'm pretty much more focused on individual astrology and helping people more on an individual level to navigate their reality. That's what I want to do. That's what I come here for every week in my weekly forecasts. I just want to give you guys insight so that way you can understand the energy so you can utilize whatever's available to you in the best possible way. And so that's what I'm going to be attempting to do here. The other thing I should mention is that, so in my previous video for my last week's forecast, I did talk about the fact that in my perspective and based on what I'm seeing astrologically, I don't think the main issue here is going to be mass death and people dying for most people. Obviously, this is a general forecast. This is going to be, you know, applied to people on a more general, broad scale. I can't look at each of your individual charts, but on the larger scale, the main danger here, the main issue at hand is mass fear, is mass panic, is mass overreaction to things, taking things too far, taking things to extremes. And I stand by that statement. And so I had a lot of backlash in my comment section from not a ton of people, but a few people who were very angry and very fearful. And I completely understand why that would be. Anyone who turns on the news or scrolls through Facebook for, 30 seconds or so can be sufficiently scared and amped up and put on edge. And I just want to let you guys know that this isn't really the place for that. So my comment section is not the place to repeat what you're hearing over and over again in the media. There are other outlets for that. And this is isn't me being angry at anybody. Again, I completely understand why you feel this way and why you feel threatened by, somebody saying something like what I'm saying. However, this is a space that I created, and these are my boundaries, right? So if you're going to be posting fear-mongering, death tolls, this, that, and the other thing, regurgitating what you're hearing over and over again on the media, there are other places for that. My comment section is not the space. But astrologically speaking, we are in a time right now in this moment where Mars is coming into a conjunction with Jupiter and Pluto. The Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is coming exact in just a couple of weeks. And so this is a time period where, first off, I've talked about this many, many times, most recently, I think, with my forecast that I did for the year ahead with Robert Phoenix, where he did predict something really crazy coming out of China. We were thinking it was going to be more to do with the protests in Hong Kong, but it turned out to be this whole coronavirus scare. But one of the things that I've been discussing a little bit here and there, on these videos, and definitely, amongst my own little community, is the fact that we are entering into a recession this year, and that recession will begin at the start of 2020 in the spring. This is because we have the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction coming exact, and that actually comes exact the first week of April, so on April 4th, and that's being highlighted this week in particular in a very extreme way. The Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is associated historically, especially in more recent history, with recession and with huge redistributions of wealth and power, and especially wealth. And so the last time we saw this conjunction was at the very end of 2007, right before we entered into the housing collapse and the Great Recession that began in 2008. And so this time around, not only is this conjunction happening right now in this moment, but it's going to be happening 3 times this year. Last time it only happened once. And so we'll have this conjunction now. We'll have it again in June, on June 30th, and then again at the end of the year on November 12th. What I was seeing for this was going to be a recession, but definitely something a little bit more intense than what we saw last time around. And so that's what we're starting to see here. I want to almost upgrade my prediction there to something a little bit more intense than that, but just to kind of give you guys an idea and a feel for what we're heading into and what we're going through. I don't think anyone would argue that we're going into, at the very least, a recession right now. And it started very quickly because Mars, a planet that has to do with urgency, intensity, things happening in the immediate here and now. It speeds things up and makes things happen very, very quickly. Is coming into a conjunction right now. It's been hitting this whole stellium of planets in Capricorn, causing a huge upheaval and causing things to speed up and causing these things that we've been talking about with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, with a restructuring on the level of government, a bearing down, an oppressive energy coming from the government and the powers that be. We've been talking about this for a while and how that's going to be coming up. And, we had that conjunction come exact in January. Both of those planets are being hit by Mars in this week or in the next 2 weeks. And so the point of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction was just hit by Mars as well. So part of that energy, everything is speeding along and coming up and happening so quickly and happening so intensely, has to do with that Mars conjunction to this huge stellium in the sign of Capricorn. And so with that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, Pluto is associated with wealth, debt, taxes, other people's money, investments. And so we're seeing huge changes happening on a major scale in that realm. And so it's kind of happening all at once right now with that Mars energy. It'll continue to come and go, this energy, right? Where there's going to be shifts in the markets, where there's going to be redistributions of wealth and resources, where people are going to be hit economically. But that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be this way the entire time, and it won't be this way the entire time, because what we're experiencing right now is rather unique. And so that's part of what we're going through. And so that's literally happening right now in the moment. It's peaking right now in this moment. And we'll have for the next 2 weeks is the peak energy of this, for the next 2 weeks. So this coming week, we have a full moon that's going to be exacerbating something that occurred last week. And so we'll talk about that in just a second. And then we're going to have Mars hitting Saturn exact at 0 degrees in the sign of Aquarius. And then we're going to have then we're going to have that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction exact on April 4th. So April 1st, April 4th, those are key dates. Next week, the new moon is a key date. And what's going on right now, today and into the weekend, very, very pivotal. And that's an energy that started to become very strong a couple of weeks ago, and especially within the past week. And it will continue to be very strong into next week. On a global scale, this is bringing mass fear, mass paranoia, mass overreaction, a bearing down on a societal level when it comes to authoritarianism, rules, regulations, restrictions, really oppressive heavy energies. And again, there's that mass redistribution of wealth, or consolidation of wealth, I should say, because it's the wealthy people most of the time that are going to be getting wealthier. And so that's what's happening on a global scale. But what can we do with this, right? What is this doing for us on an individual level? Well, on an individual level, there are a couple different things that you can do with this energy. Right now and through all of April, this energy with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is going to be very, very strong, because Pluto is going to be stationing to go retrograde and lingering within that orb of conjunction with Jupiter. All of April, this energy is going to be very prevalent. Not as intense as these next 2 weeks, but it'll still be there. And this is a great opportunity for every single one of us to get in touch with what we deeply and truly desire. A lot of us are going to be sequestered in our homes. A lot of us are going to be spending more time in isolation due to the restrictions that are being imposed on us. And this is a very important time to get very clear on what you truly and deeply desire, what matters to you on a visceral, deep, emotional level, what feels true to you, and what does your soul want. That is what we're looking at right now. And with this energy of Pluto is about your deepest desires. It's about your deepest longings. It's about the truth that lies at the heart of what you're experiencing and what you value. It's about your psychological and emotional attachments to things, which we're going to be reevaluating. And we're going to be deeply looking at what matters to us in the here and now, what matters to us most, what do we want to hold on to, because it has that deep internal value. Anything that is not in alignment with what we truly desire for our lives on that deeper core level, not that surface level, not like, oh, I want a big house, a mansion, this, that, and the other thing. For some people, that might be in alignment with what your soul desires. I'm not judging anyone for that. But for most of us, it's going to be about something a little bit different. And so this is a time to take stock of what lights you up, what makes you feel truly and deeply passionate, what helps you to feel so excited about life, what do you feel obsessed with? What can you not get enough of? What can you not leave behind, right? That's what we're going to be focusing our energy and attention on. Pluto is very black and white. It works in extremes. You're either going to be really, really into something, or you're just going to not be into it at all. So this is where we're drawing these hard lines. It's like, what do we value? What do we want to focus on? And how can we really focus our energy and intention on creating that in our lives? Because this is a time where we can make huge, massive shifts, massive changes that can benefit us in incredible ways. And it can happen very quickly, especially right now with that Mars energy involved. But really, this entire month is a time where people are going to start really taking stock of these things and moving into what they're deeply passionate about. So anything that's surface level, anything that's a distraction, anything that's not in alignment with what you need to be doing right here and right now, this is a time to let that go, to purge, to cut that off at its source so you can focus like a laser on whatever is most important to you right now. And that's not necessarily going to be something involving like resources, material things, that type of thing. It's going to be, again, something deeper. What do you value, right? What do you value? That's first question that you should be asking yourself. And what lights you up? What makes you passionate? What do you truly desire? This is a time for soul searching. This is a time for deep inner reflection and for looking at that. This is also a very important time to look at where are our fears around those base, core, visceral things, because that's Mars, especially these next 2 weeks. Mars is having us look at those base fears, those survival instincts, those survival fears. Look at what you actually have. And if, those fears in this moment are actually warranted, or if maybe they're out of proportion to what's happening in the here and now. Trying to predict everything that's going to happen and worry about every little thing that's going to happen and control for every little thing that's going to happen. That's something that we're going to have to let go of. And this exact scenario is showing us that, because most of us did not predict this thing happening in this way and all of these things coming about so quickly. You can't always plan for everything. And so this is something that we have to kind of be aware of. So focusing instead on the here and now. Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have a home? If you have an income, be super grateful for that. If you have a way to reach out and help other people, be grateful for that. If you have people who can reach out and help you, be grateful for that as well. Look at that, right? So looking at these basal sort of like survival root chakra fears that a lot of people are experiencing, and kind of checking yourself, right? Are you blowing it out of proportion? Are you catastrophizing the situation? Or is where you're at right now in this exact moment, are you unsafe? Look at that. Because for the most part, you're not. Like some of you, of course, that'll be the case, but that's going to be a very small proportion of the people who are listening to this video. And so looking at that first and foremost, that's going to be a big part of navigating these next 2 weeks as well. And making sure that you're sort of down regulating the sympathetic nervous system, you're down regulating the fear response, you're doing practices to help de-escalate yourself if you're succumbing to that fear, if you're succumbing to that anxiety, if you find yourself stuck in a loop and worrying about this, that, and the other thing and the next thing and trying to be 3 steps ahead of the game. Bring it back in, rein it back in, focus on what's going on right here, right now, in the moment in your own life. That's going to be key. And figuring out what you desire and what you're really excited about, what you're really lit up about, what you're really obsessed with, and focusing on that. Jupiter is a planet that's associated with higher wisdom, higher knowledge, learning, and education. This is going to be a time where people are going to be aligning with their passions and going down these really intense rabbit holes. Like, I don't have time anymore for all of this nonsense. I need to focus on what I'm passionate about, and I need to learn everything that I can about that passion. And what a great time to do that when you have all of this downtime, when you're not able to do the things that you normally could do that might distract you from focusing on your truest and deepest desires. What a great time to take an online course. What a great time to, if you can't afford an online course, dive into the vast array of free resources that are available all over the internet, right? I have plenty of those for those who are passionate about astrology. And for those who want to go deeper, I have, resources for that as well. So, there are places where you can turn. If you're passionate about herbalism, study herbalism. That's what I've been kind of focusing on the side when I'm normally super hyper focused and obsessed with astrology. I'm still there, right? That's part of who I am and what I do. But, find the other things that you're passionate about. What matters? Are you passionate about figuring out how to be more self-sufficient and care for your family? Are you passionate about art? Are you passionate about storytelling? Are you passionate about, whatever it is, right? Or gardening, growing food. Those are all good things that you could be doing right now that could be very helpful and useful into the future. So what do you desire? Focus on that. What are you passionate about? Focus on that. If you're sitting in a place of fear, is that fear warranted right now, here in this moment? Those are the questions you should be asking. And so this is an energy, again, that's going to last throughout this entire month. And I'm going to be focusing predominantly on these next few weeks because these are sort of the important weeks. These are when everything is happening. This is like go time. And so that is what's happening with that. Next week, I want to discuss a little bit about what's going on with Chiron and the nodes, because this is going to bring about a different set of questions and a different set of opportunities for us. And so this energy here is actually kind of reflecting an energy that happened on Friday the 13th. We actually had Chiron in an exact square with the north and south nodes. So there was a T-square being formed between Chiron and the nodes. That happens to be the day when, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, announced a national state of emergency here. And, that's when things really escalated, especially in the United States. There are a lot of reasons why things escalated prior to this point that I'm not going to get into in these bits and pieces. But what I'm seeing here is, an energy that's going to be highlighting that at the start of this coming week. And so that's just kind of something to be aware of, to keep on your radar. But on an individual level, this is a really incredible opportunity. Chiron is the wounded healer. It's that healer, heal thyself energy. And so many of you who are watching these videos are powerful healers, are really deep into these different forms of guidance and spirituality, and you have a deeper understanding and a different perspective on the world than other people do. You have the ability to help someone. You have the ability to guide others in some way. This is an energy, and I'm going to talk about this really in depth in my weekly forecast, of course, but this is an energy about looking at how we can use our own personal experience, our own personal hardships, our own personal past traumas, past wounds, the things that we've had to work through and heal from. How can we use those experiences to show up and help others, to guide other people, to heal people during this time when it is so needed? It doesn't mean that you have to be on YouTube talking to people like this. It doesn't mean that you have to be doing it on a mass scale. What's needed more than ever is that one-on-one connection, that close individual connection with people. So if you can help calm somebody's fears, if you can help guide somebody through this experience that we're having, do that, because this is what we're being called to do right now with this Chiron energy. We're shifting into a completely new paradigm right now. The north and south nodes are in Capricorn and Cancer, just as they were when we went through the whole fiasco with 9/11. We saw how that changed on a societal level so much. And we're kind of going through, we're definitely going through another big shift on a global scale. A shift in our worldview, a shift in our society, and people are struggling, and not everybody has the same insight that you have. Not everybody has the same abilities that you have. Maybe you are somebody who studies herbalism. Help other people to, do things that are going to calm their nervous system, that are going to boost their immune system if that's something that they're worried about. Do something where you can help guide people in any little way that you can, because this is a week, especially at the start of next week, where we need to show up and help other people to heal. This is an energy that started a couple of weeks ago that's going to last a couple more weeks, but this is the peak of that energy. So ask yourself during this new moon, when you go inward, when you use this time for introspection and reflection, how you can, in Aries, with the new moon in Aries conjunct Chiron, take action, initiate something that's going to help someone. Maybe you grow a garden and you're going to share your vegetables with your elderly neighbor who can't go to the store right now because of the quarantine. Maybe you're going to teach other people how to grow their own food and start their garden, right? Whatever you can do on a small scale, do that. Do it now. We have time, right? We have all the time in the world to do these things at this moment in time for most people. My situation's a little different. My husband's situation is a little different. He's busier than normal and more stressed out than normal. But for people who have that downtime, do that, right? So that's the one thing that I would say. And teach other people how to heal themselves. Teach other people how to overcome the obstacles that you've overcome if it's relevant to their situation. Share your experience with others. That's going to be so useful right now and so needed right now. That's going to be a big energy. I'm going to talk, of course, about how that's going to affect everyone on an individual level in my weekly forecast, but I wanted to bring that up as part of this because it's a part of the energy right now in this 2-week sort of crunch time period. In terms of when I see this starting to let up a little bit, the peak intensity, as I mentioned, will be this week, next week, following week, so this 2 to 3 week time period. By the middle of April, the intensity will diminish a little bit, but we're also going to have Pluto stationing to go retrograde. And I wrote down on my notes when that's happening, but it's happening toward the end of April. And so again, that energy is going to be still there. There might be another burst of that energy when Pluto stations, because Pluto's a big player in this. And so that's something to just kind of be aware of. And after that period, as we come into May in particular, we already kind of know they gave us a timeline, April 30th, they're expecting to open up businesses and do this and that and the other thing. And I think that's actually pretty accurate based on what I'm seeing astrologically. The virus sort of energy and the hype around it, the fear around it will begin to wind down and begin to dissipate middle of April. There'll still be there'll still be energy around it, but it's not going to be nearly as intense as it is right now. And then coming into May, we're going to be shifting into a completely different energy. And so that's going to be the time where we're going to start to focus on what kind of moving into a new paradigm. And so I'm not going to get so deep into the Saturn energy because I did a complete overview and a complete forecast about Saturn and Aquarius, but we're entering into a period where on a societal level, there are going to be more restrictions imposed on us when it comes to our ability to connect in groups. We're already seeing that, right? Social distancing, the most Saturn and Aquarius thing I've ever heard of in my life. And so that's not going to go away completely. And the fear that's being instilled right now over this very specific time period, by the way, in psychology, they say that it takes roughly 40 days to make or break a habit. And this sequestering, fear-mongering, quarantine period is lasting roughly 40 days. I think that's for a reason. Obviously there are other reasons for it, and there are like public safety concerns and things like that, but there is a bit of an excessive reaction in respect to the actual threat based on the statistics and the numbers we have right now. And so, I do think there's a reason for that. And so part of this, what this is doing is this is conditioning us, right? It's conditioning us to live in fear of large groups. So we'll stay out of groups and we won't gather as a group to do whatever it is we need to do, to rebel, to protest, to be together and to just enjoy each other's company. That's going to be part of this energy that, because of the intensity of the fear and the conditioning we're receiving right now, I don't see that completely going away. And so there's going to be a backlash to that, right? There's going to be a push on the other side. And so the push on the other side that I see really begins in May when things open up. So a lot of what's going on right now on an economic level is impacting small businesses, especially small local businesses. All small businesses are being impacted, even internet-based ones like mine. But I'm very grateful and very lucky that I can still be in operation. I can still work. I can still function. I can still connect with all of you. Small businesses, brick and mortar businesses are taking a huge hit. And I think because the North Node in May will shift into Gemini, Venus, which rules finance, is going to go retrograde in Gemini. There's going to be a huge push and a huge focus on rebuilding local economies, focusing on our community, and focusing on supporting and elevating local businesses. And that's something that I think is going to be long withstanding. We're going to figure out ways to support our local businesses and our local supply chain that is so important with that Saturn square to Uranus and Taurus, the disruption in the food supply, the disruption in the supply chain. I predicted this a few years ago. It's happening now. And so we're seeing how our current practices, that South Node energy shifting into Sagittarius, where we're focusing on global trade, what's going on all over the world, connecting with people at distances, which has value. We're going to shift our focus and our orientation. What's really important to do, especially if you are a small business, if you're a small business who operates on, in a brick and mortar location, who operates on a community level, I think that's still wonderful, but you're going to have to look at ways that you can function and still continue to operate when things like this happen, because there could be, on a smaller level, not like this, but on a smaller level, other things that are coming up in the near future, in the next couple of years, that might impact your business. the community itself is going to band together and help to prop up these businesses once they reopen. That's going to be a thing. But looking at if you are able to, your supply chain and what you can source locally from here on out. So if the supply chain is disrupted, which I believe it will be again in the future, again, not to this scale, but these things are going to continue to happen for a little while. If you can look at how you can source everything locally and then continue to support the local supply chain, local businesses, local farmers, local this and that. So that way, when things are cut off, you have all that you need. The people that are being hit the hardest right now are people who are in large cities. I live in a very small town, and I'm very grateful that most of the produce, especially the organic produce in Colorado, is grown in this very small area where I live. We have plenty of food here still. People are hoarding some supplies, but we'll be fine. People in big cities are posting these images that are kind of disturbing, where the entire supermarket is completely out of food. That's because their supply chain is not local. Everything is coming from all over the world, and almost nothing is coming from right there in that space. And so we're going to be looking to ways to prop up and to not necessarily even to prop up, but to focus our energy and attention on what's local. That is the North Node in Gemini. And I think that's a wonderful thing, and that's very needed. Looking at things like local, restorative, regenerative agriculture is going to be huge with that Uranus and Taurus energy at play. And especially now, after this has all happened, we're not going to be looking at large scale agriculture. We're not going to be looking at shipping things from other countries to eat. Especially, it's going to be a huge focus, and I think it's going to happen at a grassroots level. I don't think the government's necessarily going to come in and swoop in and support this type of practice. They're going to try to find ways to prop up these large industries, these large industrial farming practices, and this overseas trade. I don't think that that's necessarily going to work, because at a grassroots fundamental level, we're going to be supporting our community. If you are a brick and mortar business, looking to that is important. Also looking to having an online presence. Use this downtime to have a website, to, if you can, ship things outside of your local area. Find a way to set that up and to make that happen. Another thing, though, that can be really incredible that I think that people should be kind of looking to is how you can deliver your services, your goods, your resources to people in the community at a low or even like completely free of charge. That would be something to really think about doing. Having a local presence and having a way to continue operation without a brick and mortar location, if that's something that is necessary, because it is necessary right now. And a lot of local businesses are doing that. They're delivering things, they're delivering their products to people for free. They're working on, still keeping in business, but having that already in place. And having that already be a regular thing, so people already know that this is what you do. And for people who can't leave their homes for whatever reason on a normal basis, which there are quite a few people who are in those situations, that's something that you could be providing as a resource for people. And so thinking about that as sort of something that you can do. And if you have an online business that's more global, another thing that I think people are going to be focusing on is how they can interact and engage with their community. I mean, I've seen this coming, and I'm working on rebuilding my office space. This current office space is not going to be my permanent office space, into a larger space in our home where we're going to have an area where I can actually have real clients come to me, which I've never done before in my entire life. And that's something I was already working on doing, because I feel like focusing on your community and having a local presence with the North Node moving into Gemini is going to be huge. Absolutely huge. Online businesses, of course, are going to be a bigger thing. And the other thing, too, that I see coming and that I've been talking about for a while is, the housing market collapsing, but not in a very level, even way. And so I think this is the onset of that with the North Node in the sign of Cancer, which rules property, home ownership, things like that. Capricorn, of course, are like businesses and especially corporations. People right now are shifting their focus. They're focusing more on, in this moment with all of this Cancer Capricorn energy, the sort of deconstruction of the corporate world and the normal day-to-day reality, the normal structures that we typically depend on, is forcing us to focus on our families, on our immediate environment, on our home life? What do you want to come home to? Is this what you want, in terms of your living situation? Is this what you want in terms of your family connections? And even if you don't have blood family connections, like, is this what you want in terms of the people you surround yourself with that support you and love you and that feel like family? Thinking about ways that you can cultivate that a little bit more will absolutely be a part of this energy as well. But I think there is going to be a mass migration out of the bigger cities and into more rural areas. And so I think the housing market, the dip that's going to be happening, I don't think it's going to collapse like 2008, but the dip that's going to be happening is going to, I think, affect different locations differently. And I've been talking about this for a little while, where the bigger cities are going to see a much larger dip in the housing prices and in the market and all of that. And the more rural areas, the small town areas, are going to see less of a decrease in property value because people are going to be leaving the cities and seeking out these types of locations if they have the ability to do so. One of the good things about this Saturn and Aquarius energy, which will create a situation where even after the fact, businesses are going to be looking to ways where they can have people work remotely, have people work online, which does reduce actual contact with human people. So there's a downside to that for sure. But the upside to that is that it allows people more freedom to live where they want to live. And so I think that, there is a concerted effort to sort of corral people into the cities. And I think that this is going to kind of thwart those efforts a little bit, because when people aren't working in an office, they have more mobility, and these rural areas will probably start to have a better infrastructure for that due to the demand, because right now you can't really have good internet in most places. I'm very grateful that I'm in a place that's a huge exception to that, but in rural areas like where I used to live in Arizona, the internet's horrible. It's very hard to function as an online business there. So I think that the rural areas will start to support this a little bit more so too. But that's part of what I'm seeing coming up in terms of the energy. I think that we're going to focus more on our community, connecting on a community level. So those larger scale connections, those big group connections that are going to be sort of suppressed and repressed, on a social level, I think that there's going to be like grassroots movements to connect with our community and people who are in our immediate environment, because so much connection from this point on is going to be more online. I think that there's going to be a huge focus on organizing community events, connecting with people on a community level. And I think that's needed. I think that's absolutely a wonderful thing. That's something that, I really, am hoping for, and I can definitely see being the case, especially right now with what we're going through. And so, starting to think about ways after this is said and done that you can facilitate community connection. If you don't know your neighbors, get to know them, because, when things do get hard, then you have this wonderful support system. You have these people who you've been so kind to and who are already, kind to you. You know who your friends are in your immediate environment. If they need something, you're going to be way more likely to reach out and help them. If you need something, it's going to be the same. So getting to know your neighbors, getting to know your community, connecting on that level is going to be huge. And that's something to start thinking about even now, even when you're in this era of social distancing. After this is all said and done and you can connect with your community in a real way and actually interact with them, figure out ways, organize some sort of meetup, right? It doesn't have to be something about if shit hits the fan again and we need to help each other. That can be part of it if that's what you want. And I think that's a good thing to do. But what are you passionate about, right? Go back to that energy, Jupiter and Pluto. What are you passionate about? And how can you bring together a group of like-minded people who are passionate about the same thing so you can connect and build community in real time? And even when something like this happens, you can still connect over the internet, over the phone, discuss these things that you're passionate about, collaborate in different ways without having to, touch each other or be within 6 feet or whatever they're having us do right now. Again, I don't think that's going to be a thing that's going to last. It's just going to be the mental impression of that's going to last. And so people are going to continue keeping their distance. And so, let's not do that, right? everyone on here, you know, start connecting with people, figure out ways to facilitate that heartfelt connection, to facilitate a greater sense of community. All right. And I think that's pretty much the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about here. You know, I would love to go in depth into everything that's coming up in the next couple of years, but that's going to have to be a separate video. And, you know, maybe I've been thinking about calling up Robert Phoenix and seeing if he'll do a video with me, because I think that his perspective is always an interesting one, and he does have a lot of really incredible insights. So maybe that'll be popping up in the next week or so. We'll see. But in the meantime, you guys just kind of stay calm. You know, find ways to stay calm, find ways to focus on the here and now. I've been posting on my Instagram account different like herbal remedies and tips and things like that for just calming the nervous system. I think, you know, the calming remedies are actually way more important right now than the immune boosting remedies. But of course, if you want to boost your immune system, if you're somebody who maybe works in the healthcare industry and feels like this is important, or if you're somebody who's maybe more at risk because you have some sort of illness already, then things like vitamin C, of course, are great. And all of the stores are, even like the little health food stores, are running out of vitamin C. One of the things that they're not running out of, that as far as I can tell, at least around here, is rose hips. So rose hips is super, super high in vitamin C. You can make it as a tea. You can take it as a capsule. You know, you can do all sorts of things with that. So, you know, thinking about ways that you can boost your immune system. But the main thing is just like calm. Sit in meditation, do some yoga, go for a walk around the block, keep your 6 feet distance or whatever you need to do. You know, spend some time outdoors, just sitting on your balcony or sitting in your yard. Sunshine, not only it boosts your mood, it boosts your vitamin D levels, it boosts your immune system. One of the things that depletes your immune system is fear. That is scientifically proven. Fear, stress, anxiety, negative emotion kills your immune system, right? So you don't want to be in that state if you are somebody who's actually worried about contracting a virus. You want to be in a state of calm, in a state of parasympathetic activity where your rest, digest, and, you know, immunity response is active. And so, you know, thinking about ways that you can cultivate that, you know, different breathing techniques. There are yoga videos all over the internet and all over YouTube that I absolutely love. There are a lot of different herbal remedies that you can try. I mentioned aspen as one of them that I really like for right now, because a lot of people are very sensitive, especially people that are into these like spiritual types of practices. They tend to be very Neptunian, very Piscean. And so they pick up on other people's vibes and the collective energies more readily than others. And so if you're one of those people, aspen is a Bach flower remedy that can help you to still maintain insight, intuition, sensitivity, but to have that boundary and to understand what's yours and what's not yours, right? So there are a lot of different things. I'll continue to post things as I think about them on my Instagram account. And yeah, I hope that you guys found this helpful. Hopefully I don't get too many weird comments. Anytime I say anything a little bit controversial, it stirs up a bit of a ruckus. And, you know, I'm okay with that for the most part. I just don't want people, you know, spreading fear and craziness. We have enough of that right now, right? That's not what we need right now. So I hope that you guys found this helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please, you know, subscribe to my channel, like the video, and share this with somebody else who is maybe looking to understand what's going on a little bit better. And hopefully I gave you guys some practical tips for how you can navigate this energy. And I will see you guys tomorrow, because I'm going to be posting my weekly forecast, which is what I will be recording next. All right, I'll see you guys later.